The Vatican is the smallest state in the world and is located in the middle of the Italian capital, Rome. To this day, numerous legends and conspiracy theories surround this stronghold of the Catholic Church and its past. Today, we will take a closer look at the 12 darkest secrets of the Vatican and shed some light on the actual connections and backgrounds. But before we start, we would like to invite you to subscribe to our channel. Activate the notification bell so that you are guaranteed not to miss any new video, and give us a like at the end if you liked the post. 1. The Vatican was created during the war. Today, many believers and visitors to the Vatican assume that the state within the state is an institution that dates back thousands of years, but that's not true at all. The Vatican came into being as an independent state shortly before the outbreak of World War II. Officially, the Catholic Church wanted to ensure neutrality during the chaos of war. But in truth, the Vatican may have just exploited this situation to secure sovereignty and absolute diplomatic and secular immunity for the clergy. In plain language, this means that the Vatican nationals can do whatever they want. Within their state, they are safe, and no authority of any other country can get to the clergy. The Independence Treaty was signed in 1929 by Benito Mussolini, then head of the Italian government and later communist dictator. 2. Secret rooms and corridors. The Vatican covers an area of just over 100 hectares in the center of St. Peter's Basilica with the circular piazza in front of it. Surrounding this center are palaces and gardens used as residences and administrative buildings by the Pope, his bishops, the bodyguard, and many other clergy. The buildings house the famous Art Museum, the secret Vatican Library, and the Vatican Bank. In total, just over 800 people live in the world's smallest state. According to unofficial information, there are secret passages in the Vatican or under the Vatican that connect the mini-state with the outside world. If someone wants to disappear from the Vatican or enter the state unseen, it should be possible at any time via these tunnels. 3. The secret Vatican Library. The Vatican Library contains 20 kilometers of bulging bookshelves. The writings are said to go back to the time of Jesus and before. The library was officially established in the 12th century. After that, access to the books was strictly forbidden to ordinary mortals. It was not until 1881 that Pope Leo XIII allowed scholars access to the Vatican's secret archives. Although the Vatican claims the library is not so secret, to this day there are writings that only the Pope and his top bishops are allowed to see. Rumor has it that there are testimonies in the library about who Jesus really was, the existence of extraterrestrials, and the true nature of the world and human existence, and secret treaties of the Church with high-ranking rulers of all eras. On the British TV show 60 Minutes, one of the librarians commented on questions about the contents of the forbidden books by saying, "No one knows exactly what is in these books. It would be impossible for the human brain to understand." 4. The name of God. Within the Vatican Library, there is said to be a scripture that reflects the true name of God as revealed to Moses in the book of Exodus. In 463 AD, this name was kept in a secret place and only reigning popes had access to it. Pope Francis had promised in 2017 to publish the true name of God as part of an opening up of the Church, but nothing has happened to date. The true name of God continues to remain a mystery. 5. Exorcism in the Vatican. Father Gabriel Amorth is said to have performed 13,000 exorcisms of devils during his ministry. In the Vatican itself, there is an exorcism school where 250 priests from all over the world learn the techniques of exorcism every year. Pope John Paul II and the recently deceased Pope Benedict XVI also personally performed exorcisms. 6. The secrets of the Vatican Bank. The Vatican has its own post office, TV and radio station, and bank. From 1971 to 1989, Archbishop Paul Casimir Marcinus was president of the bank. Before his career as God's banker, the U.S. citizen served as a bodyguard for Pope John Paul. During Marcinus's tenure, the Italian private bank Ambrosiano Bank collapsed, leaving a $1.4 billion debt streak. The former president of Ambrosiano Bank, Roberto Cavalli, was found hanged on Blackfriars Bridge in London in June 1982. The same day, Calvi's secretary fell from a window in Milan and died. Ambrosio's lawyer, Michele Sedona, died of cyanide poisoning in prison in March 1986. Whether the cases were murder or suicide could never be fully determined. In the course of the investigation, it turned out that the Vatican Bank was one of the main owners of the Ambrosiano Bank and that the bank itself was a ghost bank of the mafia. Although Marcinus was proven to have committed numerous crimes, he exercised his diplomatic immunity and remained the head of the Vatican Bank for 7 more years. 7. The death of John Paul I. John Paul I had been in office for only 33 days when he was suddenly found dead in his bed on September 29, 1978, at the age of 65. Vatican doctors cited an acute heart attack as the official cause. There was no autopsy. According to witnesses, the very athletic Pope was in excellent health. To this day, there are indications that John Paul I had been taken out of the way by the mafia because he had announced reforms in the state. 8. Machinations in the Second World War. In 2009, a document from 1942 was published that proved that the Vatican had stashed 200 million Swiss francs for the Nazis. The sum was said to be mostly confiscated assets of Jews who had fled or been murdered. Furthermore, there were indications that the Vatican gave shelter to numerous Nazis after the war and subsequently helped them to escape to South America. To date, the Vatican has not officially issued any statement on the allegations. 9. Sexual abuse and the Vatican's secret justice system. In 2008, a first wave of sexual abuse reports shook the Catholic Church. In 2019, the Vatican again faced a wave of allegations and reports. Church officials from around the world are affected. Priests, parish priests, and even bishops have exploited their positions and the trust of the faithful, sometimes for years or even decades, to commit sexual acts, mostly against children and mostly against boys. Some of those affected had to face consequences. Others were covered up by the Church. The blame for these excesses is said to lie not only with celibacy, which does not allow priests to have sex, but above all with the strange sense of justice of Catholic leaders. Catholic priests have the right to forgive murders, rapes, mass murders, and even genocide as started by the Nazis. From the Church's point of view, this settles these crimes. In the Vatican, only 5 crimes are considered mortal sins. 1. Desecration of the Eucharist. 2. Murder or attempted murder of the Pope. 3. Priests who witness a crime committed by another priest and then hear that priest's confession. 4. Priests who have had sex and then hear their sexual partner's confession. 5. Participation in abortions. Publicity was first given to these strange internal laws of the Vatican and the Catholic Church in 2009. 10. Castrations for art. In the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, a very special and today unthinkable choir was in use until the 20th century. The boys and later men who sang there were castrati. This meant that they had their testicles deliberately removed in the name of the Catholic Church. Only in this way did the boys' voices remain angelically high and pure. To give women these singing parts was absolutely unthinkable for the churchmen of the last millennium. According to unconfirmed information, dozens, if not hundreds of boys died during the castration, and the Vatican paid considerable sums to parents who agreed to the castration. 11. Inquisition. In 1252, Pope Innocent IV officially legitimized the use of torture to force suspects of heresy to confess. This was the beginning of the Inquisition, which cost the lives of at least 60,000 people in the following centuries. Women, healers, herbalists, and clairvoyants in particular were persecuted as witches. But also men, even children and animals were put on trial. The madness of the Inquisition could only last in Europe because generations of fanatical popes agreed to the goings-on. The last witch was burned in Germany in 1807 because she was blamed for a fire that almost destroyed a small town. The Vatican, however, did not fully repeal its witchcraft laws until 1965. In 2018, Pope Francis officially apologized to all victims of the Inquisition and their descendants. Galileo Galilei, one of the most prominent victims of the agitation, was officially rehabilitated in 1992. The Catholic Church had sentenced the astronomer to life imprisonment for discovering that it was not the sun that revolved around the Earth, but the Earth that revolved around the sun. At that time, this was considered an unimaginable sin and unforgivable blasphemy. 12th Papal Resignation. On February 28, 2013, Pope Benedict XVI declared the unbelievable. The man born Joseph Aloysius Ratzinger in Bavaria resigned from his office. This had happened only 5 times in more than 2,000 years. The first resigned pope was Benedict IX in 1047. He had fallen in love and married. Celestine V resigned his papal post in 1294 after only 5 months, presumably out of excessive demands or at the urging of an opponent. Gregorius XII resigned in 1415 to put an end to the double papacy with one pontiff in Rome and one in Avignon, France, and to give the Catholic Church a fresh start. Benedict XVI officially dropped out because his health had deteriorated. In truth, the first and only German pope to date is said to have collapsed under the VATICAN'S allegations. The allegations of sexual abuse within the Church, as well as other publications regarding the machinations of the Vatican Bank, are said to have completely overwhelmed the cleric personally. Benedict saw himself, according to unofficial information, unable to enforce reforms and to provide clarification. The retired pope survived his resignation by almost 10 years. He died on December 31, 2022, at the age of just under 96. This made him the oldest pope ever, even if he had not lived to see old age in office. The current Pope Francis had announced numerous reforms and more transparency within the Church during his now almost 10-year term, but he has hardly implemented any of them, and very likely he will not. This makes the Vatican at least as much a haven for sins as a place of faith and bliss. Many modern people also see the institution of the Vatican as outdated or even a huge fraud for these reasons. What do you think about the Vatican, the popes, and the machinations of the Catholic Church? Do you think that an institution like this is still up to date and should continue to enjoy diplomatic immunity? Or should the Vatican be abolished and criminals finally be tried? We welcome your opinions and discussions on the topic in the comments. See you next time at Hidden Worlds.